The rise and fall of Black & Decker, the drill empire that almost lost everything. There's a tool in almost every garage in America. You've probably used one yourself. Maybe you didn't even think about the name on the side. But that name, Black & Decker, was once synonymous with power tools the way Kleenex is synonymous with tissues. It was an empire built on sawdust and steel, and at its peak, it seemed completely untouchable. So how did one of the most dominant brands in hardware history nearly destroy itself? To understand the fall, you first have to understand just how high Black & Decker had climbed. It starts in 1910 in Baltimore, Maryland. Two men, S. Duncan Black and Alonzo Decker, pooled together $600 and set up a small machine shop. They weren't dreaming of global domination. They were just trying to build useful things. But what they built in 1916 changed manufacturing forever. That year, they patented the world's first portable electric drill with a pistol grip and a trigger switch. It sounds simple now, but at the time it was revolutionary. Before this invention, drilling was a slow, laborious process. This tool put power directly in a worker's hand. Industries took notice immediately. The military, construction firms, and factories became early customers. Through the 1920s and 1930s, Black & Decker grew steadily, supplying tools for industrial use. But the real explosion came after World War II. When American soldiers came home in the late 1940s, they came home to a housing boom. Suburbs were being built at a furious pace. Families were buying homes, fixing them up, building decks, hanging shelves. There was a new cultural phenomenon emerging, the do-it-yourself homeowner. Black & Decker saw this shift before almost anyone else. In 1946, they launched a consumer-grade electric drill priced at just $16.95. It was affordable, reliable, and aimed directly at the everyday American. It sold like nothing the company had ever seen. Over the next 2 decades, Black & Decker became a household name. They expanded their product line. Circular saws, sanders, hedge trimmers, flashlights. Every new tool reinforced the brand. By the 1960s and 1970s, if you walked into a hardware store, Black & Decker owned the shelf. Through the 1970s, Black & Decker didn't just dominate the American market, they went global. They opened manufacturing plants across Europe, Australia, and beyond. They invested heavily in research and development. They pioneered cordless technology, introducing one of the first battery-powered drills in the late 1960s, partly through technology developed in collaboration with NASA for space missions. Think about that for a moment. The same cordless tool technology that helped astronauts drill core samples on the moon eventually ended up in suburban garages across the world. By 1984, Black & Decker was generating billions in revenue. They were selling tools in over 100 countries. The brand was considered one of the most trusted in the world. Executives were confident, investors were happy, the future looked bright, and then they made the move that almost broke everything. In 1984, Black & Decker acquired the housewares division of General Electric. On paper, it seemed like a smart play. GE's housewares line included toasters, irons, coffee makers, and hair dryers. Everyday appliances sold in the same stores where Black & Decker sold tools. The thinking was simple. Leverage the existing distribution network, extend the brand into new categories, and grow. The price tag was $300 million, a significant sum, but the company believed it was worth it. The problem was the brand itself. GE's housewares products were licensed under the GE name, one of the most trusted brands in American history. Consumers bought those toasters because they said GE. When Black & Decker rebranded all those products under their own name, something unexpected happened. People weren't sure they wanted a Black & Decker toaster. In the consumer's mind, Black & Decker meant drills, dust, and garages. It meant power tools for construction work. It was a man's tool brand, associated with physical labor and job sites. A coffee maker from Black & Decker felt wrong. It felt like a mismatch. Sales on those product lines dropped significantly. The transition was far bumpier than anyone had anticipated. It cost the company hundreds of millions of dollars to retool, rebrand, and fight for shelf space in the appliance category. Meanwhile, competitors were watching closely and moving in. While Black & Decker was distracted by kitchen appliances, a quiet revolution was happening in the professional tool market. Makita, a Japanese tool company, had been building a reputation among professional contractors for years. Their tools were considered more durable, more precise, and more powerful than what Black & Decker was offering in the professional segment. Contractors started switching. Job sites that used to be filled with Black& Decker tools gradually became Makita territory. This was devastating for a specific reason. Professional users are the most influential customers in the tool industry. When a contractor recommends a tool to a homeowner, that homeowner listens. The professional market doesn't just generate revenue, it generates trust, and Black & Decker was losing it. For most of the 1980s, Black & Decker was fighting on two fronts simultaneously, trying to establish credibility in kitchen appliances while defending their ground against professional tool competitors. The company's stock suffered. The leadership faced growing pressure. Critics began writing articles wondering if the brand had overextended itself. Then came one of the most interesting brand decisions in corporate history. Black & Decker had acquired DeWalt, a small tool company, years earlier. DeWalt had a solid reputation among professionals, but it had largely been sitting dormant within the Black & Decker portfolio. In the early 1990s, leadership made a bold decision. They would revive DeWalt as a separate, premium professional tool brand. The logic was elegant. Black & Decker, the consumer brand, was struggling to regain credibility on job sites. Rather than trying to rehabilitate that perception, which would have been expensive and uncertain, they would simply create a different brand entirely for professional users. DeWalt tools were relaunched in 1992 in a distinctive yellow and black color scheme. They were priced higher, marketed aggressively to professional contractors, and backed with strong warranties and service guarantees. DeWalt promised contractors that if a tool broke down on the job, they would replace it within 48 hours or provide a loaner. That kind of commitment resonated deeply with people whose livelihood depended on their tools working. The strategy worked spectacularly well. Within a few years, DeWalt had captured significant market share in the professional tool segment. Contractors embraced it. The yellow tools became a symbol of serious professional-grade equipment. Today, DeWalt is consistently ranked among the top professional tool brands in the world. Black & Decker's housewares experiment also eventually found a resolution. In 1998, they spun off a significant portion of their appliance business. The company refocused on what it did best: power tools, hardware, and home improvement products. Throughout the 1990s and 2000s, the company restructured multiple times, streamlined operations, closed underperforming divisions, and leaned into core strengths. They remained innovative in the cordless tool space, pushing battery technology forward as lithium-ion batteries became viable for power tools. The brand that had nearly collapsed under the weight of an ill-timed expansion had found its footing again. The final major chapter in this story came in 2010, when Black & Decker merged with Stanley Works, an equally iconic American tool company, to form Stanley Black & Decker. It was a $4.5 billion deal that created one of the largest tool companies in the world. The merged company now controlled an extraordinary portfolio: Black & Decker for consumer tools, DeWalt for professional users, Stanley for hand tools and storage, and several other brands across industrial and security markets. By combining two American legends, the company created the kind of scale that could compete globally, with the manufacturing muscle to keep costs competitive and the brand portfolio to serve every segment of the market. The story of Black & Decker is really a story about brand identity. At its core, a brand is a promise. Black & Decker's promise was reliability, power, and practicality in the garage and on the job site. When the company tried to extend that promise into kitchen appliances without doing the hard work of building a new identity, consumers rejected it. Not because the products were necessarily bad, but because the association felt wrong. The DeWalt recovery taught the opposite lesson. Sometimes the most powerful thing a company can do is recognize that one brand cannot be everything to everyone. By creating a separate identity for professional users, Black & Decker didn't dilute its own brand. It protected it, while building something new alongside it. Today, Stanley Black & Decker employs over 50,000 people around the world and generates revenue in the tens of billions annually. DeWalt is one of the most respected tool brands on the planet, and Black & Decker, that name that started in a Baltimore machine shop over a century ago, is still sitting on shelves in hardware stores everywhere. The empire wobbled, it nearly fell, but it found a way back. And the next time you pick up a drill, you might just notice the name on the side.